Whew. Oh, there it is. Holy moly. Good evening, friends. What an incredible turnout we've had. And this certainly is not everybody that would have wanted to have been here. We've got folks all over the globe that would have loved to have been here tonight, but so many of you made it, and we're so deeply thankful for that. My name is Mark Bogart. I'm on staff here at Memorial Drive, and on behalf of our entire staff, particularly our student ministry staff, welcome. We're very, very glad you're here. Everything tonight should feel familiar, from the menu to the slideshow to the stickers and the buttons on the table to the table decorations that somehow look exactly like the front console of Steve's Ford Expedition. Tonight, everything is quintessentially Steve. A lot of you ask questions, what are the balled up receipts for? Is everything that you saw on the tables could probably, if you went right now, be found in Steve's car, including peanut M&Ms. So we are incredibly grateful that you're here. Tonight is, of course, about honoring and celebrating Steve and his 40 years spent serving God and neighbor through Memorial Drive United Methodist Church. And as we move forward, you will hear from some folks that mean a lot to Steve and to whom Steve means a lot as well. We're going to highlight many of the things that Steve loves. And for example, you undoubtedly notice that one of Steve's deepest loves is snacks. Steve loves snacks. In fact, you probably enjoyed many of his favorites this evening. And another one of Steve's deepest loves is comedy. And no one knows that better than our first guest tonight. Please welcome Mr. James Dudley.
Oh my gosh, so excited. So many people to thank. First, I'd like to thank the Hollywood Foreign Press and so many people. Just kidding. So, I'd also like to point out to Bogart and the people that asked me to speak that originally it was just going to be like a gang of people in the Wesley Hall, and now here I stand. I was having panic attacks that they were going to make me talk up there and the place would be struck by lightning. But we'll move on. So I met Steve in the summer of 1986 or 87, I can't remember. He was brought in for work camp to be in charge of the construction part of work camp that year. He wasn't officially the youth director that year, but he might as well have been. He became officially the youth director, I believe, that next year after that work camp, and everyone knows, where it went from there. Just terribly. It was a disaster. Has been a disaster ever since. These are the jokes, people. So I'm sure my kids would disagree. I am kidding, of course, but my kids would disagree. But I do consider myself somewhat of a funny guy, and I owe part of that to this man we're talking about tonight, Steve Cragg, who many of us here would agree that he's one of the funniest men we know. So any discussion of Steve would be incomplete if I didn't share one quick story about one of Steve's favorite parables, which is, you guys are probably thinking in your head, one of Steve's favorite parables was this story of the prodigal son, or as Steve called it, the loving father. And it's an amazing, wonderful parable. I'm sure all of you know it. You know it. I won't retell it anyway, but Steve's version started off a little bit like this. A man had two sons, and one day his youngest asked his father for his share of the estate. So the man divided it equally between his two sons, and shortly after that, the youngest son took his half of the estate, and he went out into the world and traveled great distances, and all the while he spent all of his money on wine, women, and song, and some of it he just wasted. So Steve has been a part of so many big moments in my life, many times alongside his father, the legendary Dr. Cragg. Steve's been by my side for some pretty tough things, deaths, heartache, tragedy, and some really good things, birthdays, weddings, births, and countless other events that he didn't have to be there, but he was. However inconvenient it was, out of the way, middle of the night, different part of Houston, different part of the country, didn't matter, he would be there. And the thing about all of that is that I'm not unique. I'm not special. Many of you, I'm sure, are sitting there thinking that very same thing about Steve, that he was there for you in a time when you needed him. And he has been. And he's made that impact on hundreds of lives, maybe thousands. And I've had this conversation with people that he has the ability to say the right thing and be at the right place at the right time for someone in that moment, that very moment, when and where they were and when they needed him in that exact moment. And that's not luck. He's not a lucky guy by being able to do that. That's from years of doing it. It's from a place inside of him. It's part of him. Part of who he is as a man and a father and a husband and a brother and a son, a granddad and a friend. And it's us, me and everyone here and everyone that he's affected that are the lucky ones, because we've experienced it and will continue to experience it. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, James. Well, another thing that Steve loves is holding court. Steve loves stories. He loves telling stories, sharing stories, listening to stories, and he's got a lot of them. His thought of the day, I found this in my pile of many things. This is an old bound book of many of the Steve Speaks from over the years. A lot of you recognize a lot of these stories and will recognize them particularly if you read them, but this means a lot to me. He has the story of the discovery of Jesus. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not sure if it was scrubbed from the internet. We looked high and low. We're going to put our tech department on it to see if we can track down the actual video. But Steve has been co-opted many times, as there are a lot of people that say that they're the ones that discovered Jesus, and I assure you, they were not. Steve is the OG. When he tells stories, typically he ends things, particularly if it's on a Sunday morning, he would end things with, "That's the good news." I see a lot of nodding in the room that you know what I'm talking about when I say that Steve says, "That's the good news," and then would finish up telling the beauty of the gospel. Some of you in this room have probably heard these three words: whoa, 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 whoa. And of course, that meant that you had probably said something inappropriate, particularly a curse word. Now, the funny part is, of course, you knew you'd made it into the circle of trust when Steve said a cuss word or made it an inappropriate joke in front of you. That's how you knew you'd made it into the circle of trust. And one of my favorite Steve-isms, and part of his storytelling, is, "I'm always thinking." Steve likes to say, "I'm always thinking." And part of his "I'm always thinking" ethos is a stockpile of ideas that some would call brilliant and others would call, well, harebrained. My two all-time favorite, and in my opinion, the most creative of the lot, really just revolve around finding ways to make it more convenient to eat things that are terrible for you. So let's give this a try. Are you tired of waking up at the crack of dawn and spending countless hours in the kitchen making buttermilk biscuits and sausage gravy from scratch? Does the morning rush prevent you from enjoying the hearty, delicious breakfast you deserve? Well, hit that snooze button again, my friends, and pour yourself a heaping bowl of Gravios. Simply add milk to the miniature freeze-dried biscuits and powdered gravy mix, and bingo, biscuits and gravy just like Grandma used to make. Now imagine it's mid-June and you find yourself at Six Flags with 100 MDUMC middle schoolers and hundreds upon hundreds of other guests, you're hungry. And you fancy a smoked turkey leg. But of course, it's 175 degrees outside in San Antonio, Texas. Lucky for you, there's Cragg's Turkey Freeze. Now, Cragg's Turkey Freeze, it cools you off and it fills you up. Because the beauty of this is, let's say you're walking through the thoroughfare there at Six Flags and, man, I got a hankering for a turkey leg. But it's 175 degrees outside, so you grab yourself a Cragg's Turkey Freeze, and it'll cool you off, and then by the time it's defrosted in the hot July sun, you got yourself a delicious turkey freeze. So these are just prototypes, of course. But we hope to ramp up full-scale production sometime soon, and we'll have them on shelves of grocery stores nationwide sometime this fall. So these are for you to keep, my man. Hang on to those. It's actually frozen. So, for many reasons, Steve is a legend in his own right, much like our next three guests. Please give it up for Sandra Robertson, Betty Christian, and Tiffin Wilsford.
Well, we can go ahead. We can sit to get our music.
We're supposed to start with the musical number. Just like in youth ministry, we got it all scripted out.
Oh, come on, Michael. We didn't
A little more than that.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, well, long before, Steve was a big Swiftie fan. He was a big fan of Britney Spears, and some say that song might have been written about him. So this is our tribute to Steve. It's Oops, Steve Did It Again. So as a quick disclaimer about what you're about to hear. Or see, that's very true. Most all of these things are accurate, are true to the best of our memory. Not all of our memory's that great anymore. And so, best that we remember it's true. Although you may not have been there, we can imagine that you could envision yourself hanging out with Steve in some of these most memorable moments for us. And so we'd like to thank Steve for sharing those with us, and thank you all for allowing us to share some of our most memorable moments with Steve Cragg. So, take it away. Okay, so.
Well rehearsed.
Yeah, okay. Well, there was a time way back in the day when there was this Lon Morris College up in Jacksonville. I don't know if some of you might have remembered it. But they had this great idea to invite youth directors up to come and teach a course. And when I was young in ministry, and they, the sages, the gurus were around, they invited me to go. And we were spending the night in some beautiful dorms. And then we got up that next morning, and we went to Whataburger to get breakfast.
We went at midnight.
Oh, it was midnight. Same thing, early in the morning. And I think we're in a Ford Expedition, as a matter of fact, and we stop, and this lady starts running for the door. I'm not sure why. Just taking off, like she's never been there before. And so we get inside, and she's already ordered, and so Steve and I order, a few others order, and Parker was there. As I remember this, Parker was there, and so we all get to the table, they start bringing your food, and the first meal they bring is Sandra's, and she ordered biscuits and gravy. And I'm not talking just biscuits and gravy. I think Steve said, wow, did you order biscuits and gravy for the whole table? That's nice of you. I mean, it was a lot, okay? And so it was like mounded up. And so Steve starts talking about gluttony and your cholesterol and all these things to poor Sandra. I was like, wow, I thought they were friends. And for years, every time we get together, often at Taste of Texas, he would ask the waiter or waitress, hey, do you all serve biscuits and gravy? This lady loves biscuits and gravy. And everywhere we go is constantly, hey, Sandra, would you like some biscuits and gravy? And so just for you. And of course, Parker was there. I think there was like a teachable moment. He's like, Parker, this is why you don't overdo it. Something like that. And so, that's our choreography.
As lame as it can be.
You're up, ma'am.
Oh, gotta get my suitcase. Excuse me. So as youth leaders throughout the years, we always heard the call to go to a youth specialties convention because we needed more knowledge. And there might be one in like Philadelphia or San Diego. And so we always chose the California one. So we were California dreaming. And so Steve, Sandra, and our friend Deborah Garrett and myself, we decided we had to rent a Mustang convertible. We didn't even think about our luggage. So once we picked up the car at the airport, Sandra and Deborah and I were all holding our luggage just like this, going down the highway, because we couldn't see anything. We had nowhere to put luggage, but we had to have that Mustang convertible. So we get to the hotel and we check in, and another one of our youth friends, Kevin Gilmore, we were all getting ready to go to dinner at this nice place, and it wasn't too far down the road. So anyway, like I said, it was a 4-seater. Again, it was Sandra, myself, Steve, Deborah, and Kevin wanted to go. And we said, well, Kevin, there's not room. And so Steve said, well, just get in the trunk. So Kevin gets in the trunk. We're driving down the highway to this restaurant, and Kevin keeps beating on the trunk of the car and said, are we almost there? And we went, well, not really, just hang on. And so we'd go about another 30 feet, and Kevin would say, how close are we now? It's okay, Kevin, you're fine, you're fine. Yes, we know you smell the gasoline, but you're fine. So anyway, we finally drive up to the restaurant, and so we didn't know they were going to have valet parking. So we pull up to get out, and of course we're all getting out very gracefully. And the valet parking guy said, hey, let me have your keys. And Steve said, hold on, we got to get something out of the trunk. We open up the trunk, and there's Kevin dripping with sweat. But he got a free ride, and as youth leaders back then, you know, we didn't have a lot of money, so we did the best we could.
Okay, it's your rave.
Oh, gosh, yes. So there was, a lot of you have probably been to Lakeview Methodist Conference Center, maybe even been with Steve and some of us. On one of my first times there, I was helping with the leadership, and we had this cool idea. That was back in the day when raves were still fun, and we were going to have an impromptu rave. And so we had just finished lunch or something, and there was probably about 20 or 30 adults standing around the room breaking glow sticks, and they're just about to throw them out to the kids and play some loud music and have a lot of fun. And I was emceeing, and Steve says, hey, could I say something to the crowd and show a quick video? I was like, well, it's Steve Cragg, of course, whatever he wants, come on down, buddy. So Steve proceeds to get up and show this heart-wrenching, beautiful video that just makes everybody cry. And he says, okay, thanks. And like all these adults are looking at me like, we can't do a fun rave thing after we just all crying. I'm like, thanks, Steve. And I'm like, what do we do? Let's play a game. Let's play that Surfer Gorilla Ninja thing. And so we had a impromptu game because Steve ended a good rave. So we played a few games, then we got to have some glow sticks. I don't remember what the video was, but I think it was from a mission trip you did, and like talking about how important it was and how we should all give back and all those wonderful things, which is great, but we were wanting to have a rave. So thanks for spoiling that, but it all turned out well.
Gotta be flexible.
Gotta be flexible.
Okay, here's my story. As would be the case with youth ministers back in the day, nothing would be off limits to get a great laugh at the expense of each other. So there was this big party that they gave to honor me when I quit serving as a Texas Conference youth person, and my great friends, my close associates in youth ministry, and I think that Steve was in charge of the gifts. Because what happened was we had this beautiful picture of the Last Supper. And so looking closely, I see that my face is on the body of the disciple next to Jesus at the table. Yes. And so I thought, how could that be if I was there, he had to be there. So we started looking around, and sure enough, we found the original picture. And there was Steve, not just me, but there was Steve reclining at the table with me. And we have the proof of that tonight. We have that here to present to him.
Am I introducing time? All right, so it's many of you, if you've been in youth ministry around the conference, you knew of TYME, T-Y-M-E, Texas Youth Ministry Enrichment. And when I first got in the game, that was always held at Memorial Drive at this cool new place they had, the Refuge. And youth directors from all over the conference would come and gather and have a meal together. We seemed to always do that when we got together with Steve, but we'd have a meal together and we'd talk about Sanders' age. It was great. And we'd have great speakers, and we would all be enlightened. So we wanted to thank Steve for hosting so many times and introducing that to so many people across the conference.
At the beginning of time, we had some great youth people involved in that. Steve, of course, he was our fearless leader. Marshall Monroe, Lee Allen, Rob Grothier, Bob Swan, Tiffin, myself, Deborah Garrett, Connie Robertson, Sandra, and of course our beloved Rusty Watkins. That was really a special roll call of people who love students and love Jesus.
Okay, so we'll end up by saying that there's so many stories that we wanted to share with you tonight, but we had to cut it down to just a few. And a lot of that was largely because of our memory. We just can't remember all of them. But it has and is a true pleasure to have served and to serve alongside Steve, who taught us so much, like the descriptive words of goober and bonehead. So we thank you, Steve, for all the memories.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. It's obvious that another of the many things that Steve loves is he loves people. He loves serving others. He's got devoted partnerships of service and outreach, and we know that that is so much of what makes Steve tick. And one time, a group of students at Sunday school would ask if you could add a person to Mount Rushmore, who would it be? And one student said, Jesus. And I was like, okay, teacher's pet. And another student yelled, Steve. And so with his affinity for politics, I figured he'd like very much that we took the liberty of rearranging Mount Rushmore just a bit. So here we have Steve, and of course our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ there on the bookends. You might recognize Harry Chapin there, second from the left. And does anybody recognize the person second from the right? That is Jack Carew, the man that invented Diet Coke. So there is your rearranged Mount Rushmore. And it is with incredible pleasure that I welcome our next guest. He has been a partner and a wonderful friend to Memorial Drive United Methodist Church and all of us for many, many years. You might know him as Reverend Elmo Johnson from Rose of Sharon Baptist Church, but a lot of us know him even more affectionately as Brother Elmo. Welcome, Brother Elmo.
Thank you, Mark. It's an honor to be here to honor my friend, Reverend Steve Cragg. Dr. Cragg started the Soupmobile a long time ago when he was pastor here, and it's been coming to Rose of Sharon for over 30 years. I've been a part of the Men of Action in that same room that we ate. Been a part of Steve's life, watched his kids grow up, and now watching his grandkids grow up. Certainly, Dr. Cragg, glad to see you here. I wrote a few things out. Now, Brother Jim's supposed to time me. I'm a Baptist preacher, so when I don't get amens, I just keep going. So when I do this, say amen. I do this, say amen. All right. Steve, my friend, Steve Cragg, he preached at our church a couple of Sundays ago. He and Mark came down. Excellent message. I didn't know he could preach like that. We got the amen in him, boy, I say, wow, I got to invite him back. We have been serving for a long time, Brother Steve, serving people because we love people. Serving people is a family affair because every Thanksgiving, part of Memorial Drive and the Cragg family come down and serve at our church Thanksgiving Day. It started with his dad. This church have been on the front line for many, many years. It's been on the front line of serving. You started in our community and other communities serving people. Steve Cragg have served with me for I know over 30 years. He has trained many and passed down his wisdom and his knowledge. Memorial Drive believe in training. They taught me that. I started teaching our kids. I said, listen, those kids would come down with Kim Kennedy and all of them come down and serve in our community. I told our kids, when you plant good seeds come up. But if you plant bad seeds come up. So learn how to serve and do something good while you're young. And Memorial Drive, you are good at training children to do that. I thank my God for Steve Cragg, whose life have been a life of service. Now, I realize that God calls us to serve. When God called us to ministry, He called us to serve. And you have done that well, Steve. Service, I told our church, I learned this from Steve, is real ministry. Caring about people, feeding people, the homeless. Bag lunches still come down every Thursday and every Saturday. We start feeding the kids at Gregory Lincoln. The kids come out of Allen Parkway, low-income apartments. They look forward to those bag lunches. They come, more kids come on Thursday than any other day because they look forward to those bag lunches. Real ministry, when you care about people and feeding people and clothing people and touching the lives of people. Steve has taught us all how to do ministry well, how to love, how to care, how to share. And I know the glory goes to God. But my friend, I love him dearly, And I told my wife, she says, he's still over the youth? I said, yes. He's the oldest youth assistant. When he graduated Mark up to youth leader, he's the oldest youth assistant I ever known. But he's still going. Steve would go with, amen, 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 amen. He would go with a boot on. He would go with his arm in his. Steve is go, go, go. I said, Steve, you and I, we won't rust out. I'm 70 years old, and I'm still going, and I'm going to be going, going, going. And I love my brother from another mother. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Elmo. That's the shortest recorded time that Elmo's had in front of a hot mic in history. So somebody call the Guinness Book of World Records. That's right. We had a shepherd's crook ready to... I'm just kidding. Well, of course, Steve loves so many people. And obviously one of Steve's deepest loves is for his family. And we know how much Steve loves his family, and a lot of us feel like family. So much so that I remember a story from a rafting trip many, many moons ago. Parker is one of my dearest friends in the entire world. And we'd been rafting, and we were swinging, we were all on a school bus, hot as heck, no air conditioning on there. And we were coming back from San Antonio from being at the Riverwalk to kind of hang out towards the end of our trip. And we all get on the bus, and we hang out for a while, and then we make a quick pit stop, and Steve says, stay on the bus, I just got to go to the restroom very briefly. So Steve hops off the bus. He's gone for just a little while, and then comes back on the bus, and we'd all stayed put, and Parker and I are sitting, I'm in the kind of very back, and Parker's a couple of seats ahead of me. And Steve gets on the bus and has the hugest ice-cold Dr. Pepper you have ever seen in your life. I mean, a huge one. And so we're like, well, it's that, he's driving the bus. I suppose he deserves a delicious drink. But no, he gets on the bus and he goes, pass that back to Parker. So he starts passing it back to Parker, and it makes its way, and every few seats somebody takes a sip out of it and passes it back, and eventually it makes its way into Parker's hands. And Parker's like, thanks, Pa. Man, he just grinned from ear to ear, looks like he slept with a coat hanger in his mouth on Parker's face. Just could not be smiling ear to ear. And Steve kind of sits in the bus, and the buses, they've got that big mirror where you can look and kind of monitor everybody. So Steve looks up in the mirror, and his face kind of does one of these. And he goes, no, that's for Mark. So God is my witness. Parker turns around and goes, and hands it to me, and that's when I knew that I suppose I was a surrogate member of Steve Cragg's family. But we are grateful to hear from members of his actual blood family tonight. Give it up for Parker Cragg and Kelly Vicente.
And Jade. Thank you, Mark. When he told me who all was speaking tonight, I thought I felt really sorry for whoever followed Brother Elmo. And here we are. I just want to start by saying, just on behalf of the family, this is incredible. And we are just so grateful to all of you who came here, folks who came from out of town to celebrate our dad. And also celebrate our mom, because this is definitely, it's been a packaged deal, for sure. For sure.
Mm-hmm. So in honor of our dad and the great David Letterman, we have a top 10 reasons why we love Paul.
Yep. Okay, number 10, he knows comedy. I don't even know where you begin with this one. I mean, I could be here all night. This could be the entire list. So much of the funny that he has brought to this job has been talked about tonight. I could just say he's always like that. As an elder millennial, I get a lot of memes, I get a lot of tweets, I get a lot of funny stuff from the internet. Nobody sends me more than my father. It's not even close. I want to be clear, there is much laughter in our home, and we all think that Pa is very, very, very funny. My very favorite moments in life, though, are when we're all hanging out, and Pa says something funny, and I laugh right away. And he laughs right away. And Mom and Kelly are not laughing so much, which just makes me laugh even more. And it happens more often than you would think. But he is the funniest guy I know. That's number 10. He knows comedy.
Number 9, he somehow knows everything about everything. It is the most fascinating and frustrating thing in the world because if you try to talk to him about it, he already knows more than what you're going to bring to the table. We promise that if you are ever on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and you have one call, it has to be Paul.
Call him, you'll get it. Playing Trivial Pursuit with him, Jeopardy, we have no hope. So number 8 is his taste in music. This might seem a little strange. Pa's taste in music is more depth than breadth. As has been shared tonight, he is a huge Harry Chapin fan. Not only Harry's music, but Harry's activism and his fight against world hunger. He has absolutely passed that on to me and Kelly. His love of music is also evidenced by the care he took in making mixtapes. So this was back in the day of mixtapes when the church minibuses still had cassette players. And we'd have long, many hours on the road, driving to Colorado, driving to Mexico. And Paul would spend hours curating these playlists to really take people kind of on an emotional journey. It was cool. Most people, if you're making a playlist to take people on an emotional journey, would choose different songs. Pa would just do the entire tape front and back of the same song on repeat. Because you can't really get Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire until you've listened to it 20 times in a row on the way back from Mexico. Puff the Magic Dragon, another one. Just incredible.
That's the one. You have not lived until you've road tripped through Mexico sitting on a beanbag chair in the church minibus listening to Puff the Magic Dragon 13 times in a row.
It'll break you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 7, he knows how to break the ice. Whether a conversation is too serious, going too long, maybe too tense, he knows just what to say, and he is the guy who can say anything to kind of break the ice. My favorite example of this was one time during a rather tense, maybe meeting, if you will, with summer staffers about the notorious door list that was not getting done. He interjected and interrupted everyone and said, "Emergency, the biggest task for today is to peel an orange, put the peel in an empty water bottle, and bring it to me." No one knew what he was talking about, but they did it, and when they asked why, he was like, "Obviously, it's the best smell in the world." And so anyone who entered the office that day, he would be like, "You gotta come smell this." It just broke the ice, it broke the tension. And I only know it from that one moment, and when I walked in tonight, every single table had a water bottle with the orange peel on it. And so I asked Caroline, he was like, "Oh yeah, he does it all the time, it's his favorite thing." That makes me laugh.
Okay, number 6, his garage. Okay, this might seem like a strange one. So everybody knows that Pa is very handy, and he has great construction skills, and it has forever. And everybody also knows that for several decades now, he's gone on literally hundreds of mission trips and service projects all around the world, and that's great. But the impact that has had on our garage, y'all, it's unbelievable. It has been unbelievable my entire life. It has everything. It has a welder's mask. It has a lathe. It has several bikes, probably 20 hammers. The only thing it doesn't have is a car. But it is a testament to his lifetime of service, for sure.
He gave my mom for Christmas, maybe last year, a wrought iron pole that used to make heart-shaped rocks. We have that in our garage.
Yeah.
You want to make wooden bats, wooden bowls. It's like
Anything.
a REI if you need to go camping. We use it all the time. That was number 6. Number 5 is his love of Sonic. Again, you saw it tonight. I think every single person in this room has been to Sonic with my dad. He gives the Sonic ladies over at I-10 in Sam Houston Christmas presents every single year. Probably better than ours. But he loves Sonic. My kids are obsessed with Sonic now because of him. But my favorite Sonic of his is, my dad's favorite thing to do at Sonic, other than get iced tea, is to unwrap a little part of the straw, blow it, and it thumps against someone's head. He says it's the most beautiful sound in the world. But let me just explain to you that my last semester in college, my very last test ever, Chemistry 101, that I was putting off because I thought I was going to fail, but I was sitting in class taking my last final ever, and my phone was blowing up. I saw I had like 5 or 6 missed calls from my dad, thought someone died, thought I needed to rush out of there, turned in my incompleted test, said something horrible happened, I have to leave. I get outside, I call my dad back. He is road tripping by himself up to Lakeview, and he blew the straw perfectly to where it went into the air duct. Once in a lifetime shot, and he had to tell me about it. So I walked back in and said, yes, someone did pass away, but I am able to complete the test because I was too mortified to explain who my dad was. So number 5, his love of Sonic.
Amazing. Okay, number 4, he's the toughest guy we know. I think, most kids, when they're really young, probably think that their dad is, the toughest guy in the world. I just never grew out of that. He's so tough that for a while, he gave himself the nickname T-Bone. He's so tough, he even has a set of dominoes that say T-Bone on them. And, you can't just buy those. You have to be pretty tough to have a custom set of T-Bone dominoes. Another thing he has that you can't buy, that is a symbol of how tough he is, he got this past summer. And it was a chip commemorating the 5-year anniversary of his kidney transplant. And of course, the 5-year anniversary of the incredible gift of life that Uncle Chris gave to him and to our family. And Paul walked through that experience the way he's walked through too many tough experiences these last 10, 15 years, with grit and resolve, not feeling sorry for himself, just putting one foot in front of the other. And he really is the toughest guy we know.
Number 3 is his love of family. He loves us, but goodness does he love my kids. He loves my kids well. He loves all of us well. As Mark said, he has shown that our entire life. He loves our mom, Sweet Beverly, as he calls her. But his love of family, he also loves both of our husbands. We married, just unconventional husbands, if you will. From different cultures, and never once was it questioned, never once was it even talked about that it would not be accepted. So he loves his family well.
Yeah. I like to joke, we've thrown Paul some curveballs in the marriage department, Kelly.
I don't get it. I don't know why.
Exactly. Kelly has a husband that Paul hadn't met until
They met after we were
engaged.
There was a lot of trust.
And I have a husband. So, again, curveballs. Handles them great. Number 2, he preaches the gospel through words and actions. So I'm sure some of you have probably heard this saying, preach the gospel at all times and just use words whenever, necessary. And I think about Paul, and he really does that. And so with using words when necessary, he does use words with his thoughts of the day when he's not actually there with somebody. And for so many years now, he has sent out these just beautiful, incredibly thoughtful little parables of everyday faith that they just make me so happy every time I see him, in my inbox. He's so gifted at that. But then for as long as I can remember, I've also seen him just go out into the world just to serve people, feeding people, fixing their homes, asking nothing of them, just loving them and serving them. And like I said, as long as I can remember, I've gotten to see him do that all over the world. And every time I do, I feel the way I feel tonight, which is just indescribably proud and lucky to be his son, really.
And with that, the number one reason why we love our Paul is he shows up, plain and simple. James already talked about it tonight, but I don't care what is going on. He shows up. He gets on the plane for you. He goes to the hospital for you. He goes over to your house for you. It can be any time. I'm not exaggerating when I say maybe for the last 20 years, his voicemail has said something about, if you're hearing this voicemail, it's probably because I'm in jail, and it's because he answers his phone. I don't care where we are. Marcus, wherever you are, call him 20 times a day. There you go. He's going to answer your phone call every single time. Y'all could call him right now, and he would answer his phone. But he shows up not only for the people that he loves, but he shows up for anyone who walks into this church, for anyone that he meets. And it's just a really beautiful, beautiful thing. We just wanted to say that this was a top 10 list. We could have made a top 100 list. Mark gave us 7 to 8 minutes, so clearly we only made 10, but goodness, are there so many reasons why we love Paul.
Thank you guys very much. We've heard from so many, and probably from many of you to one another tonight, about how much Steve loves people. We've heard from Parker and Kelly how much that Steve shows up, and you know that it's true. It's part of the reason that you're here tonight, is because Steve shows up. And Steve has very likely shown up in your life in incredible ways. So when we think about things that Steve loves you. Steve loves you. Think of this, how many of us in this room, that if we were in a bind, if we needed bail money, if we just needed somebody to listen, how many of us that Steve would be one of the first 2 or 3 calls we would make in crisis, in need, or comforting words? And now think about this, how many of us wouldn't be where we are right now without him? Without his love and his care, that maybe you wouldn't be the man or the woman that you are today. Maybe you wouldn't know your spouse. And so when we think about who Steve loves and what Steve loves you, all of us. And so sharing with us now is a man that knows that well. He's been around since the beginning. Give it up for Robert Fail.
Mark, thanks so much for the invitation. Is that too loud? Did I hit you?
Great.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, very much for the opportunity. It's really nice. You know, even though he's not dead, we can say wonderful things about you, but we'll just hit replay, and then we'll just save energy. That's okay, right? My name is Robert Fail. I met Steve in 1988, James. I did the math a while back. So I met Steve in 1988 in a border town in Mexico, and we were surrounded by underage girls, and there were some guys in a back room getting high on Mexican paint, and it was work camp. It was a wonderful week. I learned some wonderful things from this guy named Steve Cragg that was the son of the senior minister here. He wasn't the youth minister yet. So, if you want to find an all-you-can-eat joint, you ask a fat guy. So we're driving around South Texas, and literally he pulls up next to a hefty fella and says, "Hey, do you know where we can get an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet?" And he did. He told us to go down the street. So Steve doesn't cuss, as we know, or at least not mostly, but I also learned you're allowed to say a lot of shock jock things even though you work for a church. And, you know, like Mark was talking about, if you're in the inner circle, he might say some things, but even 15-year-old Robert was sort of like, can he really say that? So this is a family show, but I am going to give a preview. My message is PG-13, Kelly. That's not a joke. I am going to say the F word in church. I wasn't particularly appropriate in my past, and I don't know if I've particularly grown out of that, but we all get to a thing like this, or a wedding, or a funeral, or whatever it is to celebrate, and we say great stories, and they're hilarious, and it's about good times. And I've had a lot of great times with Steve, a ton, and we all have, and we've heard a lot about him here, and they're all the same theme. He taught me a lot about balancing serious with fun, and sarcasm with truth, hard work, forgiveness, compassion. Mostly, he taught me about comedy. But I'm going to switch and do something a little more noble because we're in church. He taught me a lot about patience through his own modeling, mostly. We got a situation. Is that a fire alarm? That's not part of mine. So Steve's been my mentor since I was 15. He spoke at my wedding. He spoke at my mother's funeral. He's been a second dad at times. He's been a mentor, a pastor, a marriage counselor, a divorce counselor. He's been a terrific friend and a life guide for me. Everyone here probably knows that about him, and he's had that role in a lot of our lives. And, you know, there's people that have clamored to come up here and beg to speak, and I did too, to say that exact thing. But, you know, it's easy on some of the service to serve when it's comfortable and happy and fun and clean and safe. And I think everyone knows, but Steve's also gotten dirty and dangerous at times. When we were in Mexico one time, he went with a guy, I forgot his name, but he went to a heroin house by himself with our Mexican man escort and went into the heroin house to see it and to be compassionate and to pray over those men that were in there. Another time, I'm pretty sure against Beverly's orders, he went and slept under a bridge in downtown Houston just to experience homelessness. He's a guy that he doesn't back down from a situation. He speaks to people that he probably shouldn't speak to. He goes places he probably shouldn't go. But he moves forward in service. And, you know, I think one thing that we can learn from him is that he wears the armor of God at all times. And he'll just walk out there and serve. So, you know, a little transition. So William Shakespeare invented words. I don't know if everyone knows that. There were things that William Shakespeare put into his plays that were not words in the English language before. Then he put them in a play, and they became words in the English language. So, I mean, I'm an amazing playwright myself, and a master of the English language. So I invented a word. Craggerly. From the dictionary, craggerly, adverb, pronounced craggerly. Definition, to be steadfast with perseverance in service to God, regardless of circumstances. When young men frustrate us with bad choices, we must carry on craggerly. When kids named Robert anger us and hit us in the junk with a tool, we can push them down, but we must carry on craggerly. When we're across the globe picking up rare diseases that screw up functional extremities, we must carry on craggerly. When modern medicine makes a problem worse, we must carry on craggerly. When every day hurts, we must carry on craggerly. When we love others, we must love them craggerly, even when they're super annoying or angry, snotty, diseased, high on heroin, homeless, hopeless, penniless, graceless, thankless. We must love Craggerly. So to celebrate this vocabulous day, I made t-shirts with our new word on it. They're available in a box for anyone who wants one in the Wesley Hall after the show, in most sizes. Wait, I lost my place. Stand by. Okay. All right. I'm going to transition a little bit because that was fun, and I'm excited, and I didn't get enough applause or anything for the shirt. So you like? Okay. Okay. I'm going to transition a little bit and take a little bit of a serious turn. The F word is coming, Kelly. It's Steve's day, but I'm going to talk about myself for a little bit and then circle back. There is a point, so please bear with me. A Cliff Notes version of the last 8 years of my life is that I made selfish choices and I hurt people. I saw escape from my life that I had through self-loathing and sympathy from others, lust, adultery, betrayal, pornography, blame, and angry aggressions toward others. I selfishly built and rolled a snowball of lies forward until it crushed me with shame and hopelessness. On a golf course in Mississippi, I hit 3 balls into the water, and I looked up and I screamed at God to and I meant it. And I didn't talk to him for 6 years. It doesn't take much to tell there was more than bad golf going on. I was angry and sad and miserable. I didn't want to live, and I didn't want the life I was given. So that's the executive summary, but the main point is that I hurt the people that I loved the most, and I didn't want to live. So a quick preview of recovery. Now I recite and frequently read the 23rd Psalm, which is, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want," and so on. I'm not going to say the whole things because I would probably screw it up in an audience, but I wanted to share my personal takeaways. The Lord, God sets a table for me in the midst of my greatest enemies. And my greatest enemies are jealousy and envy and regret and anger. Jealousy sits across from me at this table in my imagination, and to his right is envy, and over here is regret. And regret is really quiet but extremely powerful. My Father God stands behind me as I'm seated at the table. He anoints me with oil because he chooses me. He protects me with internal peace against those enemies, and I can look them in the eye. And even back then in my darkest times, I knew that God was just sitting next to me waiting. And I felt him and pictured him sitting there, and I told him no a lot. In the summer of 2020, I crashed to a bottom I'd never been to before. I spent a lot of the time on the floor that summer crying. I didn't know what to do. I had choices. One of them was particularly grim. One choice I made was to call Steve for help. A few months later, I ended up at a treatment facility in Arizona for 6 weeks. I had told Steve and other family members, my brothers here, my other dear friends that are here, I told them I was going to get treatment for depression because I wasn't doing well. And even that was a lie. I was lying as I left because I was so full of shame and fear. Before I get to a happy ending of sorts, if you will, I want to tell you something that is my mission from God that he gave me in Arizona. It's important that my lessons don't go wasted. He used Job and Aaron and David and others and Paul and now me to let us know that life has struggles. We will fall. We will suffer. Someone in here right now is filled with shame. Someone in here right now either has or recently has been suicidal because of hopelessness and despair. And my job right here and my mission is to tell you that there is hope. You can recover, and you're not alone. I know two people in here named Robert and Steve that you can call, and they won't judge you. One of the beautiful things for me about sinning so badly that I did over the years is that I'm completely free of judgment. I don't judge others anymore because I've done worse. Back in Arizona one afternoon on my allotted 15-minute phone call in treatment, I called Steve, and I told him that I had lied to him. And I kind of vomited a bunch of I'm sorries and apologies and admissions. And I remember that phone call because he cut me off mid-sentence. He said, Bob, I don't care. I don't care what you did or why you're there. I love you. Presumably, most of the people in this room have not spent 6 weeks in a Class 4 psychiatric hospital. So I'll tell you that contact with the outside world is very limited. Getting mail is probably similar to getting mail in prison, I guess. It's like Christmas morning to see your name on the nurse's station wall and dry erase board. It's really exciting, and it made me happy. Steve wrote me a letter every day. Sometimes it was just a note or a cutout of a picture of something stupid, the little memes and things that he's given all of us as little trinkets and gifts. This one is on my nightstand at home. I'm not going to read it all, but I'll just give you some highlights. December 7th, 2020. Bob, happy Pearl Harbor Day. So the reason I kept it is right here. There is nothing that you can do to make me stop loving you. Nothing.
We've heard tonight so many of the things that Steve loves. Steve loves snacks and comedy and holding court and telling stories and serving others. He loves his family. He loves this church. He loves you. And Steve loves me. I got an email sometime around early 2005. Steve knew I hated my job that I had. Many of you may not know, I took naps under my desk. If you've seen the Seinfeld where Costanza takes naps under his desk, I promise you it was very similar. Now that's not exactly a proud moment for me, but it does tell you I was not enthralled by my vocational choice at the moment. And Steve saw something in me, or knew something of me that maybe I didn't even know of myself. So he emailed me and he said, "Would you come work here?" So he took me to Papado. We sat and we ate. And at that table, that was, going on 20 years ago, he said, "Someday you'll have my job." Now, I wouldn't say that I have Steve's job because no one can do Steve's job. I have the immense privilege of being merely a caretaker of what this man started here. And I want to be very clear with a lot of you. I know many of you well, and others of you are like, who's this guy? It's important that you know that if you were one of the OGs, if you're one of the ones that started here, and I didn't come until kind of the mid-90s, it's important that you know from me that I know that I'm not Steve. I don't fit in his shoes. I've tried my very best to be a Luke Skywalker to his Yoda. But I've had the immense pleasure of serving as director of youth ministry at Memorial Drive for almost 10 years now. And every day I try my best to make Steve proud. In fact, more than once I've told him to his face that on the list of men I want to least disappoint, my dad is first and Steve is second. And lastly, friends, if you hear nothing else tonight, you know this. What Steve loves is Jesus. Every single thing we've pointed to, even the comedy, all points to a man that deeply loves Jesus Christ. Deeply. It's part of the reason that you're here tonight. It's because you know that Steve loved you the way that you think Jesus would love you. That at some point in your life, you looked at Steve and you were like, man, I didn't walk with Jesus, but this has got to be pretty close. Steve invites everyone that he encounters to this space where they're challenged and they're loved and they're cared for and they're honored and they're respected and they're dignified. Steve has a legacy. That legacy is in this room, and it's outside of it, of course, but that legacy is in this room tonight. And it has been my deepest honor to work for and alongside him for close to 20 years. So with that, will you please welcome the man of the hour, Steve Cragg.
Wow.
Now before he speaks, we've got a few things for him. First is, every good man, now you know that Steve loves his chair. Steve has written, typed, looked up, sent memes, taken naps, slept in an easy chair in his living room for a long time. So we figured, what better way to honor this man than by getting him a new chair? This one's inflatable. We'll see. And next, allow me to read the following. Whereas for nearly 40 years, Steve Cragg has served the city of Houston through devoted service at Memorial Drive United Methodist Church, shaping the lives of countless youth, coordinating meals and food assistance for thousands of families, and investing in underserved communities. Those are just a few highlights of Steve's immeasurable impact over decades of ministry. And whereas Steve's unmistakable joy, loving compassion, and servant-hearted spirit have positively influenced tens of thousands of Houstonians, his influence in the lives of local youth, those in need, and even total strangers cannot be overstated. Steve has developed meaningful relationships with civic, spiritual, and social leaders throughout the city of Houston, and his far-reaching care is only outpaced by his humility. And whereas Steve's vision for community investment and advocacy for positive change are unparalleled, he has worked tirelessly to support and walk alongside countless local organizations like Rose of Sharon Baptist Church, Rebuilding Together Houston, House of Amos, Loaves of Fishes, the Houston Food Bank, FAM Houston, St. James United Methodist Church, Neighbors in Action, Lifeway, Spring Branch Independent School District, and Memorial Assistant Ministries, just to name a few. And whereas, in recognition and appreciation of his dedication and loyal service to the community, the City of Houston commends and appreciates Steve Cragg for his great compassion and kindness to so many people and worthwhile endeavors over the years as a true man of service. Therefore, I, John Whitmire, Mayor of the City of Houston, hereby proclaim February 17th, 2024 as Steve Cragg Day. We know that many of you also received a note from Caroline, an email, to submit some memories. Caroline's going to show you how thick this book is. How many pages is it, Caroline?
130.
It's 130 pages, front and back.
It's held together by duct tape.
Held together by duct tape.
Thank you.
Full of memories from you and others. And for the man that has everything in his garage, we commissioned the lovely and talented artist Judy Wild to paint this.
Oh, wow. Lovely. Thank you, man. Beautiful.
And we're still not done yet. Again, what do you get the man that has everything that does so much for so many others? Is we will be sending you and your sweet wife Beverly to Boston for an Astros Red Sox series coming up this baseball season.
Man.
So there you go. Airfare, tickets included.
Thank you.
Hotel, we'll see how much money we raise.
And so I have to take Beverly? Okay.
If you didn't hear that, he says, I have to take Beverly.
Okay.
Yes, you do.
Of course I will.
And lastly, it is with incredible honor that we officially announce tonight the opening of the Steve Cragg Endowment.
Wow. Wow.
Starting right now, you may contribute funds to an endowment that Steve and his family will help decide where that money goes. If that money needs to go to work camp, it'll go to work camp. If it needs to go with people in need, it'll go to people in need. To feed the hungry, to befriend the lonely. We know that when we put resources in Steve's hands, they go to the right place. And so tonight, you're invited. Don't have to do it right now. Just remember mdumc.org/Steve. You can spread the word. I promise tonight will not be the last time you hear of it. But this is the announcement that we will be raising funds through our Caring Forever Foundation. We will hold them in the Steve Cragg Endowment, and they will be dispensed in a way that serves people well. Now it's time to hear from Steve.
Wow. Man, oh man, what a night. I cannot begin to tell you how honored I am to be here tonight at this celebration. I must tell you, I was purposely kept out of the loop. And by Mark and the committee, if there was a committee, I guess, there was, but I was on a need-to-know basis. And if you know me, you know I don't like that. I want to know. But I trusted him. I've known and loved Mark since his high school days. Careful, Stevie. Pull it back a little bit. There you go. I've known and loved Mark since his high school days, and I trusted him. But I also knew that I would speak last tonight. And I know that I have more stuff on Mark than he has on me. And so I've got it tucked away. I don't think I'm going to use it. It was been a nice night. But Beverly and I and Parker and Sean and Kelly and Raul and certainly Stevie and Jade and the rest of my family are so happy that you're here tonight to make the choice to be here. Okay. I guess the initial promo stuff was not very clear, but as soon as it went out, I had about 50 to 60 church members congratulate me on my retirement. Now, that was not my intention. I do wonder if that's the church's intention. So, next pay period, I'll let you know if it worked out. Of course, when I realized this was a celebration, I instantly thought of end-of-life celebration. Again, I wondered if they knew something I didn't know. We'll find out, I guess. I'll let you know, or I guess you'll find out at the end of the evening. How terrible, but how exciting would that be to be able to hear people say nice things about you at your funeral? I wrote on here, not many people get to go to their own funeral. Everybody goes to their own funeral, you know? Not many people alive get to go to their own funerals. So anyway, I hope that doesn't happen. Mark mentioned the thought of the day. Back in Lent of 2000, I decided to send out a short devotional via email. Email was just kind of catching on with teenagers. I decided to send out a little thought of the day. And so I sent it out every day during Lent. And then I just kind of kept going. So they've been going for 24 years now, thousands, I guess, of thoughts. They've mentioned, you know me, I love Harry Chapin. The family just got back from a Harry Chapin cover band that played. He was killed in '81 in a bad car wreck. But he was a guy that gave back to the community. He was determined. He couldn't figure out why people were hungry in the United States. And so he would give back. He would do one concert for him and the band, and then one they would donate to local food banks. And so anyway, he would give one for the other guy. This was, quote from him, was the very first thought of the day from March the 13th, the year 2000. If a man tried to take his time on earth and prove before he died what one man's life would be worth, I wonder what would happen to this world. Let me read it again. If a man tried to take his time on earth and prove before he died what one man's life could be worth, I wonder what would happen to this world. Our church and our youth program have tried to teach our youth that their lives are worthy. We've tried to show them that we're the haves in a world of have-nots, and we try to show them by our actions and our faith we can change the world, and we have in different places. I still send out the thoughts. If you're not getting them, you ought to. Go to the church youth website, and you can sign up, or just give me your email, and I can get you on the list. They're kind of random. They're my late-night escape from the madness, I say. So anyway, I was reading a thing the other day, and in 1963, an old jar was found in Israel. They dig up roads here. They're digging up Kirkwood. It's a mess. They're not finding old relics. In Israel, every time you dig, you have the archaeologists there because everything is built upon itself. Anyway, they found this old jar that had some seeds in it. And so they were from 2,000 years ago, they determined. So they were planted in 2005, and a tree that had been extinct for 1,500 years, 1,800 years, sprouted from those seeds. We've planted a lot of seeds over the years around here. Some sprouted right off. I look out here and I see a lot of you that you took off. Some of them took a while, Some of them would sprout later. Some of them left, but we heard that they sprouted, Some of these seeds needed a little more nurture and care than others. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Anyway, some of them needed a little more love than others. And I can honestly say that the jury was out on some of y'all. But it's come in. Don't worry. It has come in, and that's the good news. We talked about family tonight. I hit the jackpot with my family. I have the most loving and supportive family anywhere. Starts with my sweet wife, Beverly. We started dating our junior year in college, and this summer, right off, I knew she was the one. This summer, we'll celebrate our 45th wedding anniversary. Yeah. I think it's about 43 of the happiest years of Beverly's life. You know how you pledge to stay with someone through thick or thin? Beverly had to pledge to stay with me through thick and thicker. But she's definitely the glue that holds us together, and I'm a lucky man. Of course, at the head of the family is my father. If you don't know, or you ought to, he was pastor here for 26 years. I got to work with him for 10 years. I had the safest job in youth ministry. After the last 27 years, it's been day to day, and so I have to be careful. But what a gift that was. And Dad turns 96 in October. You know, he's always set a high bar for us. He taught us how to love and how to live and how to serve and how to everything. I've tried hard over the years to reach that bar. I'm afraid he's outdone me on being that stinking old. I've eaten too many hot dogs, too many pizzas. I've slept on the ground too many nights. I'm not making 95, but I'm trying. I'm going to try. It takes a while. You know, not many of us have the benefit of having our family close by, almost in the same church. Having Janie and Jim and Chris and Laurie and nieces and nephews close by is such a gift. Family get-togethers are great. We can be together as long as we want, and then if we get tired of each other, we can just leave and go home. It's an easy trip. I'll never forget my Saturday morning runs with my father. Yeah, that never happened. Sorry. We didn't run much, you know, we're all so close. But there was a time in my high school years where I'd about had enough. Being the middle child doesn't have a lot of advantages, other than I think the studies show the middle child is always the smartest. We just didn't get along. And I was talking to Harry Rankin. We called him Uncle Harry. He was on staff here forever. He had married Mom and Dad. He assisted in the ceremony for all of his 3 kids. And he was a mentor to my father and all of us. And so I'd gone to him for advice. He was an amazing guy on how to deal with my family, how to get along. He talked to me about patience and faith and love. And then he closed with these words, and I'll never forget what he said as long as I live. He looked deep in my eyes, and he said, "You have to learn to get along with your family, because you never know when you might need a kidney." Well, sure enough, Harry was genius. And 5 years ago, my loving brother, who I have to be nice to now because he gave me one of his kidneys. And of course, someone reminded me, said, well, he's probably not going to give you another one. So anyway, what a gift that was. You know, when I found out I needed kidneys, Dad offered me one. He said, you can have both of mine. And I gently told him I didn't want his old 90-year-old kidneys. You know, over the years, we've had so much fun, and certainly Jesus, but our promotion Sunday skits were some of my favorites. You know, we fly up in August because we have so many kids and youth that we just can't fly them up at the end of the school year. So in August, middle of August is promotion Sunday, and we used to plan for, well, maybe not months, weeks, days, a few hours sometimes, but money was no object. We didn't spend much money, but some of my favorites, let me tell you a couple of them. One of them was a remake of the classic Bear Witch Project. You remember, it was a bear, B-E-A-R. They were stuck in the woods. It was scary. It was filmed on one camera. It kind of was a hit. We decided to remake it, but we called it the Bear Witch, B-A-R-E, Witch Project, and we shot it in the bird sanctuary. I'll never forget a scene. Mark convinced me to let him run around in his tighty-whities because he said the scene needed it for artistic realism. Do we have a picture of this? Yes. Do I have it here tonight? Thank goodness, no. No way could we show that in this beautiful sanctuary of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Plus, his mom is here. There's no way I was going to do that. When Mission Impossible was big, we had Mike Trozzo drop out of the ceiling in the youth lounge. with a rope or climbing things at the ceiling tile, and he dropped down to the music, and he was saving the knock list from at the Pentagon or something. I don't know, but it was pretty amazing. We had a scene. I think Jason Baird directed it. He was our student director back then. Where I don't forget the theme, but I was driving through the back parking lot in my Montero, which was a great car, and I hit someone. The someone was a dummy in a robe and, mannequin or something. But whatever it was, it promptly cracked my windshield of the Montero. And Jason acted like he was supposed to do that. I don't think so. So, and then finally, I remember the night we had a big old long thing of saran wrap, plastic wrap, and we used it. We had a couple of dudes. Back in the day, we primarily did Shakespearean theater. It was all male. Not to be sexist, but not many of the ladies wanted to do the stupid stuff that we would do. And so anyway, I think that night we had two guys that we used the saran wrap. They were demonstrating the forbidden dance, the lambada. And so it worked out fine. But anyway, at NYF, I'm glad we didn't have cameras back then and phones everywhere. But anyway, I was walking out. I'd closed up. I was walking out. The FLC door's over there. And I see Robert Fell spread out on the roof of a car with the windows down. They had wrapped saran around him. And just as I said, hey, that's a bad idea, I did the whoa, 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 the car took off. And I prayed, we prayed at MOF, I prayed that they had not underestimated the number of wraps it needed to hold Robert on that car. He survived, it worked out okay. So, but we had great promotion Sunday skits. MYF was fun back in the day. I'll never forget, we had a skit where we wanted gangs were showing their true colors. And I think we're finding out, I haven't heard any bad news, but we had guys paint themselves totally. They put on gym shorts, totally with latex paint. They were yellow and blue. I don't think there's any word that that's bad for you. We haven't, I haven't heard reports from any of the 6 guys that did it. I think we're okay. It's been 20 years. One night I came out with $51 bills in one hand and a box of mayonnaise packets in the other. I think it was Kirk Overhoff, one of our guys. He agreed, and for every mayonnaise packet that he would eat, I would give him a $1 bill. He got to 16 or 17, I think, maybe 18. And he was okay. He said he felt a little greasy afterwards, but that was money well spent, no question. Luckily, this is when Dad was here, so I could turn in receipts without much question. I'm not sure that's going through now, but one night we decided to see how far, we had a little contest, how far you could blow a Cheerio out of your nose. Jeremy Garner won hands down. He had the perfect ratio to Cheerio to nose hole, I guess. Shot it across the room. We were amazed. This was before the internet, and so I was a letter writer, so I wrote David Letterman because he was doing stupid human tricks back then. Got a letter back from his producer saying they were interested if I could film it and show it. They would think about booking us on the show. We were this close to stardom. They wrote back after we sent the video and said they were afraid the camera couldn't pick up the Cheerio. But Jeremy is chairman of our finance committee, which comes in handy now, I was planting all these seeds, over the years. So, and Jeremy, I think it's stupid tricks by human. I don't think it's tricks by stupid humans. I'm not sure. One night at work camp, I had a $50 bill in one hand and 3 raw eggs in the other. And I convinced Bob Springer, one of our funny guys, to come up to the front. And I asked him if I could break 3 eggs over his head for $50, would he do it? He agreed. $50 is a lot of money. Was back then, it is now. So the first one I broke like I was putting a fried egg in a skillet where I kind of tapped his head and opened it like that. The second one I smashed on his forehead. And then, I felt satisfied, so I decided to stop. And my deal was for 3 eggs for $50, so Bob didn't didn't get the 50. For the first time ever, the crowd turned on me. They were on Bob's side, and anyway, Bob took it well. We used to have afterglows. Some of you old timers remember after MYF once a month we'd go over to someone's house and eat and hang out. We were over at the Bogart's house actually one afterglow, and my spot was normally in front of the crock pot with the little smokies, and we started talking about. I just was wondering because I'm always thinking of stuff. Is how many little smokies could a person eat in one sitting or standing? And so I threw out the number 50. Well, Mark, being the confident man he is, he said, I'm in. Sweet Carrie Olander then, Carrie Neal now, she says, I'm all in. And so the next Tuesday at the refuge, we set up the challenge. Mark went first. I hate to tell you this, but Mark topped out at, I think, 11 or 12, and then went to the bathroom and promptly threw up. And I think he threw up 2 little smokies intact. So his technique was not what it should have been. Sweet Carrie was next. She started chowing down. She got to 17, and I held her off because I didn't want this sweet, lovely young lady to hold the record for eating 50, hold the intimacy record for eating 50 little smokies. So she could have done it. She was ready to go, but I held her off. As they talked about, I'm always thinking of stuff, and I think of some cool stuff, some funny stuff, some Jesus stuff, some missions stuff. I also think of a lot of stupid stuff, and I do edit myself. And I know some of you are saying, you edit yourself? Because you hear some of the stupid stuff that has been edited. So Beverly can tell you I think of some stupid stuff. But anyway, we had a lot of fun. One moment on Jesus real quick. After it kind of went crazy on the internet, Parker was my internet guy. He would say, hey, you just hit, New York Times, you just hit Paris Match, all over the place. Some of the comments by people on the internet were pretty funny. They would comment about things. One guy in particular I'll never forget. He said, obviously this guy has eaten a lot of Cheetos to find that one perfect Cheeto. So he was right. He was right. Work camp, I just have to mention a quick work camp. Obviously, it's our best trip. It's changed lives. And each of you that have been on a work camp, you can probably tell me your first work camp. You can tell me where it was. If I had a list, I can't always remember names and some things, but if we have a list in the office, I can go down that list of where we went. I can tell you the projects we did. I can tell you where we stayed. I can probably tell you some names of some of the people that we worked on. It changes lives, and it's changed my life in a big time. We still have chill time between showers and dinner. We started bringing puzzles and games for the youth to do in the cafeteria. One year I was walking through the cafeteria and I saw 6 freshman dudes hunched over a table studying this puzzle. I mean, they were hard at work, and they had poured out all the pieces and were trying to put it together. I could tell they were stumped, and so I went over there because they were having all kinds of troubles. And I said, what's wrong? Having problems? And they said, this is the hardest puzzle ever. It's impossible. I said, well, look at the picture on the front. You're always trying to guide youth. Look at the picture on the front and tell me what it looks like. One guy said, well, the background is blue. There's a tiger on it. And I gently told him to put the Frosted Flakes back in the box. Well, our job is to show youth the light, whether they're stupid and trying to put puzzles together or not. But our work camps have changed communities over the years and changed lives. They certainly have changed mine. And by the way, we can always use work camp scholarships or work camp donations. Let me close with this. It's an old little story. There was a story about a little boy who was walking down the beach, and they'd had a big wave of starfish that had washed up. A man was passing him and asking him what he was doing. Well, he was throwing starfish back into the water. The man said, it doesn't matter. There are hundreds out here. You can't make a difference. The man wanted to teach him, it doesn't matter how many you throw. There's just so many out there. How could you save all of them? Little boy had a good heart. He knew that it mattered. And so he picked another starfish and threw it in the water. They said, again, this boy's crazy. He's innocent. He just doesn't know. It's not going to make a difference. And the boy picked up another starfish and threw it in the water and said, sure made a difference for that one. You know, what a difference each of you has made in my life. What a difference this church has made in my life. What a difference our youth staff has made in my life. And what a difference Christ has made in my life. And you put all those together, I could keep going. You know, my life is richer. This last summer, Beverly and I went in early July with the Guatemalans to Pagosa Springs. We camped at the Rockin' Cay, of course. It was spectacular. We were there over the 4th of July, and they have a small town parade to celebrate the 4th with horses. We found a place on the bridge. They have horses and floats and people marching by. They would hand out candy or throw out candy to the crowd. Stevie and Jade loved it. Stevie remembers. When the final float went by, we began to gather up our chairs and our stuff. And Stevie, who's 7, and was showing Jade the bag of candy that we'd collected. And I heard him tell her this. I'll never forget. He said, Jade, we're rich in candy. You know, being rich in candy was a joy for them. And to be honest, it was a joy for me, too. But it did not take me long to think about some of the things that I'm rich in. I'm certainly rich in family. I'm rich in my job. I love what I do, and I love who I work with daily. I'm rich in my faith. I have the opportunity to worship and serve with others to try to make a little difference in the world. I am rich. Having the opportunity to hang with all of our youth and parents and friends over the years has made my life richer. I'm just flat out rich. Thank you for being here tonight and being a part of my life. Have to thank Mark and the youth gang. It took a lot of work, and it's not like we're not doing anything else. But in fact, I told some others about, I think, 7:30 in the morning, I'm leaving to drive to Canton, where we're going on work camp. Got to find some work sites. We're a little behind, and so I'll be visiting 5 or 6 churches trying to find them, convince them that we need to come move in with them. But anyway, I want to thank Mark and the gang for that. I want to thank Dr. Morgan, the whole youth staff, the whole church staff for all the love and support over the years. And I have to thank you. I love each of you. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Amen.
There's plenty of time. You can hang out. I'm not going anywhere for a while. We can make your way back to Wesley Hall for a little bit. Well, we can burn the midnight oil as far as I'm concerned. Now, that's up to Steve, of course. But there's some dessert left. There's Diet Coke and iced tea. So if you want to hang out for a little bit, that's cool. We are so grateful that you were here tonight. If you have any trash, if you would mind taking it out of the sanctuary, we would appreciate it very much. Thank you for being here.